Welcome to It's Called Soccer, the show that brings you the biggest stories, the best guests, and so much more. I'm Rebecca Lowe, host of the Premier League on NBC, and we have a Major League Soccer episode coming up for you today. Don't forget, though, we come out every single Wednesday, so subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, or YouTube. And here's what we've got coming up today. Taylor Twellman breaks down all the biggest stories in the league, including Miami making waves in the East, the rise of Charlotte and Cincinnati, and the problems at Atlanta United.
They've got a culture problem. This is borderline ridiculous, Rebecca. This is alarming.
And we put him on the spot in Taylor's Swift round. One item you would take to a desert island.
Cell phone to get me off.
Best MLS atmosphere.
Oh, this is so good. St. Louis City.
One of US soccer's brightest talents, Diego Luna, drops by to discuss his rise to the top of Major League Soccer and his pride in playing for the US men's national team.
You show people that you care. That was just my natural instincts, you know? It wasn't playing a part. It wasn't anything. It's just me being me. I think as a kid, it's been the dream, right?
And Pat Noonan joins the show to talk Pep Guardiola, coaching, and FC Cincinnati.
I think there's a lot more in this group. I've been maybe too critical at times because I don't want the standards to drop.
Taylor Twellman thinks you're going to win the whole thing. You're going to win MLS Cup.
Be better.
That's all coming up on today's MLS special on It's Called Soccer. Okay, let's welcome our first guest on the show today. Before he became one of the most respected voices in American soccer, he was one of the league's most clinical strikers, a five-time MLS All-Star, 2005 MVP and Golden Boot winner. He scored 101 goals in just 174 Major League Soccer appearances for New England Revolution. Please welcome Taylor Twellman. Now, it's great to have you back, Taylor. We've got loads to talk about today. A few weeks ago, one of your colleagues at Apple, Dax McCarthy, said, quote, "The only thing predictable about Major League Soccer is that it is unpredictable." And this last weekend really showed that to us again, Taylor. We had questionable red cards, overhead goals, a 3-3, a 5-3, so much more. Taylor, let's start with Atlanta United. What is going on? They lost 3-0 Philadelphia Union. Bad display. They are 12th in the league. They have 2 wins all season, and one of them came against the bottom place side Montreal Impact. Many tip them to be right at the top of the table after bringing in Emmanuel Latelath and Miguel Almiron. You are putting your hand up. You're saying I was one of those. But they're leaking goals a lot. Second most now behind DC United with 19. What's going on, Taylor?
It's a very good question. Listen, you got to throw Moranchuk in that. That's $50 million plus spent over the last 2 transfer windows. And you're talking about 3 legit profile of players. Obviously, you know Miguel Almiron and what he did with Newcastle, but the prodigal son returning. You look at Lat, a goal scorer in the championship that usually, and it has from his personal perspective, translated to Major League Soccer play. But this is borderline ridiculous, Rebecca. This is alarming. I tweeted this weekend. They've got a culture problem, and I don't know how to fix it because Garth Lagerwey's number one task was trying to bring back Atlanta United and that energy and what it is. It's not a quality problem, and anyone listening to this, anyone watching this, you haven't paid attention to Atlanta United and their roster. It's not a quality issue. It's not. The reality is they have quality, yet it's still the same problems. Since Tata Martino has left, and quite honestly, De Boer did a good enough job, and if Jose Martinez scored a penalty in 2019, he would have honestly been in another MLS Cup final. But the reality is they haven't figured it out. They've had managers, they've had players, they've had tons of good players that have turned out to be better when they left. Whatever it may be, Rebecca, it's dangerous. The worst start in franchise history, and I raised my hand while you were speaking because I had them contending to win the East. I thought they were more balanced. I thought they were going to be better. And yet here we are talking about the worst start in franchise history. It's going to be a long road for them to get to anywhere near what I predicted.
When we have these kind of situations, you know, people like you and I naturally look at the manager. Are we looking at the manager here or no?
You have to a certain extent. I think it's a little too soon because I think if it is a culture problem, which I think it is, you can't judge him by 2 to 3 months. I think Ronny Deila needs a little bit more time. Now, in saying that, I think we've got to be a little reserved about Ronny Deila because he won MLS Cup with Patrick Vieira's team, with Patrick Vieira's style of play. He just added a little bit of a twist, to a little bit more grit and defensive, I would say, nous to get them over the hump. But the reality was that was Patrick Vieira's team. This isn't Patrick Vieira's team. So I think Ronnie's got his hands full.
Let's talk about the other end of the spectrum. Two teams doing really well, Charlotte and Cincinnati. We had Dean Smith on the show last week, and he talked very much about... He's so great. He's actually like top 3 favorite managers ever to talk to, because he's just normal, humble, easy, open, answers every question. Love him. He talked about how on one hand, he's kind of recruiting from college, and on the other hand, he's dealing with Wilfried Zaha, who he was very, effusive in his praise about. But in terms of that mixture of no experience and tons of experience, but it looks like he's cracking the balance, Taylor.
Yeah, Rebecca, you've been in this country long enough. You've followed this league long enough. The best managers in Major League Soccer are not the ones that deal with the top 5 players of the roster. It's players 1 through 30 on the roster now, especially when you look at college senior that comes into your program and a guy making $5 to $7 million a year in some instances. It's how you coach players. The best managers in this league in history are the ones that coach every single player up 10 to 15%, because you're going to have to use that. I love Dean Smith because he's honest, he's transparent, and he's straight to the point. He was great with you talking about, I don't understand MLS Cup playoffs, yet everyone is saying, hey, you've got a home playoff game. And in his mind, he's thinking, I got to win the Supporter Shield. And yet listening to him talk about it, it almost gave you insight on how he's grown as a manager, how he's grown as a person, and how he's also adjusted to life over here. That's a great sign of what he's doing. Charlotte built last year under Dean Smith, year 1. We're going to defensively figure out this issue. You know him better than anyone. Over in England, that's what he was known for. Charlotte desperately needed that foundation in order to get to this point. Now, I don't want to put the cart before the horse. I think Cincinnati's a better team. I think Columbus is a better team, and Columbus isn't even operating at full potential. In Miami, when fully healthy, they're good. But I think Charlotte should have aspirations of the home playoff game, kicking this thing off. And as Major League Soccer has taught me many a times, expect the unexpected. Who knows? Charlotte may surprise a lot of people.
Okay, we'll talk Columbus and Miami in a tick, but let's talk about another team you just mentioned, Cincinnati, because Pat Noonan is coming on this show, and I'm excited to talk to him. I've never met him before, but what a job he has done at Cincinnati. And some big names, Evander, who we knew from Timbers, coming in for $12 million from Portland, Kevin Denkey for $16.5 million, which was a record from Belgium, both on the score sheet this past weekend. So Evander has 6 goals and 7. Denkey has 4 goals and 8. Are those two the story at Cincinnati for you, Taylor?
No. And first off, Pat Noonan's greatest accomplishment is the fact that he has survived my friendship since we were 5 years old. We went to grade school together. We've known each other for a long time. That is Pat Noonan's greatest accomplishment he will ever get. Now, I digress.
I'll make sure I tell him.
The reality is this, is that Evander was, listen, people in Portland want to tell you that Evander was a problem or the people around him. The reality was Evander is a special attacking player. They all got this cockiness and this belief that they can do anything. Pat Noonan is tapping into that. Denkey is going to score more goals. I promise you that. The reason why I shake my head no, that they're not the main story, Matt Miazga is just returning. Before Matt Miazga got injured last year, Rebecca, they were the best defensive team in Major League Soccer. And if he doesn't get injured, I'm telling you right now, they win the Supporter Shield and they beat Miami. They've got a balance with Miazga and Miles Robinson. Now you throw in the attacking players they just signed. You're going to be hard-pressed to find a real team in Major League Soccer that has the upper echelon of attacking quality and the upper echelon of the defensive quality. Now, Miazga, who knows? It's a knee injury. Does he stay healthy? If he stays healthy for the rest of the year, I think Cincinnati will finish 1 or 2 in the Supporter Shield, 1 and 2 in the East, because I just think their balance is better than anyone in this league.
Which kind of leads me on to a question I was thinking about the other day. I was having a conversation with somebody about the US men's national team job. And I was saying, of course, at the moment, it's going to be Pochettino through the World Cup. Although you never know. I just want to say you never know.
And I both know there's you never know.
I know. But at some point that job is coming up, whether it's before the World Cup or maybe more likely everyone will think after the World Cup. Do you think Pat Noonan could be a contender for that?
I do, but I also think Pat Noonan is very, very aware of where he is in his coaching life and very, very comfortable in saying, now listen, you don't want to turn it down if you're approached. But Pat Noonan wants to take that job when Pat Noonan's ready. There's very few people that understand that. He could have probably taken a head coaching job sooner than he did, but he didn't. He stayed with Bruce Arena through the national team. He then went to Jim Curtin. He got 2 different looks at what it means. He's really honed his craft and tried to understand who he wants to be. And he's looking at this at a spectrum that is not a 5-10 year process. This is going to be the rest of his life. He's got the ability to talk to the highest paid player, and he's got the ability to talk to the lowest paid player. However, you're asking me if Pochettino leaves for Tottenham right now and Pat Noonan's offered the job. He's not an idiot. It's the U.S. men's national team at home. I just don't know in the perfect scheme of things. I'm not sure Pat Noonan would want that job now, but I think eventually the way this thing is going, when you look at the first 75 games of his career, he's in the top 2 best coaches in MLS history.
The game of the weekend that we've just seen, Columbus Crew facing Miami in front of that club record crowd of over 60,000 at Huntington Bank Field in Cleveland. Miami coming out of it 1-0 winners, remain the only unbeaten side in Major League Soccer, the team to beat in lots of people's eyes. So do you think they have kicked on from last season? Have we seen progress from last season, Taylor?
Yes, we have. Here's where we've seen progress is the fact that, and sometimes you can get into the weeds with analytics, but sometimes it's a good tool to kind of explain what you're seeing. They gave up a ton of chances in transition last year, so their expected goals number giving up on the defensive side of things was high. It's not this year. It's almost, I would say 25 to 30% better when you look at 8 games in. So they're a little bit more defensive solid. I think that's Mascherano saying we're going to play 4 in the back, we're going to play 4 in the midfield, and allow Suarez and Messi to be who they are, but also not have defensive responsibilities. That's worked in their favor. Columbus was the better team, though, Rebecca. And this is a Columbus team that easily should have scored 4 goals in this game with a little bit more quality in the final third. They have potential of signing 2 huge designated players this summer if they want to. The ownership has made every indication that if the right choice is available, not once, but twice, they will do that. If they do that, I don't want to sit here and say Miami's the best team in the league when I believe in my heart and what my eyes are telling me that if Columbus signs the right 9, Rebecca, I'd be hard-pressed. With the Club World Cup on the schedule for Miami, I'd be hard-pressed to not say Columbus may still finish higher than Miami at the end of the year.
Taylor, it's really interesting, the geography of this, because in England, you always hear the narrative that players would prefer to move to a Chelsea or an Arsenal or a Tottenham because it's in London, right? And they don't really want to be up at Sunderland or they don't want to be up at Everton. In the US, I've not been to Columbus, Ohio, and I absolutely don't want to offend anybody, but I do know it's not on the Pacific Ocean. And I do know it isn't a New York City, right? Is there that situation, and we'll get on to Kevin De Bruyne before you go, but is there a situation in Major League Soccer where that seems to you to be a thing, where Columbus has to work extra hard to recruit a DP?
A little bit, but yet I would tell you this, ever since making the move to Apple TV and Wilfried Nancy making the move, I've been to Columbus 22 times, 23 times, whatever the number is. So, Rebecca, the point of it is this, is that Wilfried Nancy is 100% an unbelievable recruiting tool, and they're going to be hard-pressed to keep him either this summer or at the end of the year, because I've already heard rumblings that there's going to be people in England and in Western Europe that are going to make him an offer that may be too hard to refuse. However, in saying that, in Major League Soccer, you could make an argument the destination state right now is Ohio, because Columbus and Cincinnati have 2 of the best programs, 2 of the best ownerships, and 2 of the real quality teams in this league that want to challenge Messi in Miami. That's the interesting part to this. A lot of people are saying, okay, we're going to do our best. No. They're spending millions of dollars. They're going after it. There's a competitive nature. There's almost a little bit of hatred of what Miami's doing because they want to be better than that. Columbus right now and Cincinnati have a good argument that they're a destination right now in MLS.
All right. Okay. Ohio is where it's at. I actually love that. I love that. Okay, let's touch on two more clubs real quick before we get to De Bruyne. Austin, in the Western Conference, the opening game of the weekend was Austin FC, LA Galaxy. They beat LA Galaxy by 1-0. Austin, disappointing last year, just missing out on the playoffs. What's changed for them this season? Because they've won 4 of their last 6 and they're second in the Western Conference. What's new?
What's new is, one, they spent $30 million on attacking players, and yet they're not playing attacking play. Nico Estevez has come in here and said, I'm going to shore up the defense. We're going to be very pragmatic. We're going to be very slow in build up, which is a little interesting. However, it's given them results. The other thing is the Western Conference is not great. It's really not great. And that's now for the second straight year that it's not that much. There's more discrepancy in who's good, who's bad, but it also allows you to quickly right the ship, and all of a sudden you're second in the West. I understand what Nico Estevez is doing, but from an outsider watching it, I'm perplexed when you spend $30 million on attacking players, and yet you're not going to play attacking play. Yet he could say to me and everyone else, we've won 4 of 6. What are you talking about? Who cares? I just think at some point they're going to have to be a little different, and they can't be as predictable as they are. But right now he's getting results, and you can never really argue with that.
I think something that I continue to not struggle with, but like find fascinating is that you can win Major League Soccer, the whole win the cup, and then next season look like LA Galaxy look like right now. I mean, It is just terrible. No victories, 6 defeats, 3 draws through 9 games. They've only scored 6 goals in all of. I mean, it's like Manchester City, but dropping to like 12th or 13th. I understand the reasons, and you and I have talked about the reasons earlier on this very podcast. How bad are things right now there?
Well, I will say this, and not to sit here, but before the season started, I said the Galaxy would struggle to make the playoffs.
You did.
A lot of people, right? And so here's the thing, Rebecca, 100% I'm in your camp, and I think the evolution of Major League Soccer, that is one of the things, is not it's not having salary cap restrictions because you won. It should open up the doors because you won. And I think eventually MLS is going to get there, Rebecca. I think a lot of your listeners need to hear this. I do think post-World Cup, that's part of the evolution of MLS. I think it's the schedule, and I think it's this. However, they lost, 4 or 5 starters from MLS Cup, and that doesn't include Ricky Puig. So they're struggling to score goals. It's exposed Gabriel Peck, where the Newcastles of the world in this offseason were all over him, even Arsenal sniffing around. A lot of clubs curious about this Brazilian winger that all of a sudden is scoring a ton of goals in the blink of an eye. He's naturally left-footed. He can do a ton of things. Well, without Ricky Puig, he's been exposed, Joseph Payne. So this is a difficult situation. And honestly, Rebecca, I don't see it getting any better. I really don't. Even with Ricky Puig coming back, I just think the hole's going to be too deep.
Before we let you go, in fact, we've got a treat for you in a minute, actually, Taylor. But before that, I know you're so excited, I know. Kevin De Bruyne, the discovery rights owned by Inter Miami. I mean, they could just hold on to them, couldn't they? And never let anybody else talk to him. And then he could never go anywhere in Major League Soccer. I mean, that is another thing that confuses me. Explain.
Yes, I don't think they can. Now, the discovery rights are the discovery rights are in place just so everyone has a bite at the apple. However, what nobody talks about publicly is that discovery rights are in good faith. If you're going to offer someone X and someone else is going to offer you 10x because they can, then you can't hold the rights.
Okay.
You have to make a deal. So, for instance, on this case, De Bruyne is not owned. His rights are owned by Inter Miami. They can only pay 1x. Chicago Fire are desperately in need of a face, and they're rehabilitating their situation. Greg Berhalter's done a great job up to this point. They can offer De Bruyne 12x. Miami can't say, no, we're not allowing him to go. Now, I think Miami is going to do everything in their power to find a way to work this deal out with De Bruyne. Wow. I just think there's 2 teams. I named Chicago's one. The other one, I don't know for a fact yet, but I think they're going to come into play. That's where, Rebecca, this gets interesting. I think De Bruyne is a home run in this league. I think travel becomes a little bit of an issue for him. I think he's smart enough to figure it out, but physically there's still something there for him to achieve. And from what I'm hearing, his family wants to embark over here, particularly after the World Cup. I'll be shocked if he's not in MLS. But then again, I heard everything that Griezmann was going to be here. And all of a sudden, last minute, 11th hour, he said, no, I'm going to wait and stay in Atletico.
Okay, so sounds like lots of options then for Kevin De Bruyne. We'd love to know where you think he's going to end up in Major League Soccer. Drop us a comment. Tell us which club Kevin De Bruyne is going to end up playing at next season or later on this season. Let us know in the comments. Okay, just before you go, we are going to end today, Taylor, with a quick fire round to find out more about you. We know already that you're all-time leading scorer for the New England Revolution, but we want to go deeper. It is 20 questions. There are no wrong answers, Taylor. It is going to be fast. It might be furious, and it is called Taylor Swift Round. Do you see what we did there? Has anyone ever done that before?
No, you're the first person to ever do it, Rebecca. Congratulations.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad. Okay, number one, your toughest opponent.
Ryan Nelson, DC United.
Ryan Nelson, the old Blackburn Rovers midfielder, New Zealand international. Good flipping player. Love that answer. Number two, one city where you would love to see a new MLS franchise created. Sacramento.
It's going to be close. Sacramento or Vegas. Either way. I'm going to say Vegas. I'm going to say Vegas because I think when the NBA team is there, I think it's going to be someplace you're going to want to be. I'm going to say Vegas.
Question three, your favorite ever goal.
Bicycle kick 2007 Eastern Conference Final.
Decent. Number four, one item you would take to a desert island.
Cell phone to get me off.
Best MLS atmosphere.
Oh, this is so good. St. Louis City.
Oh, you would say that. Favorite holiday destination?
It has to be Hawaii.
Yeah. One player who disappointed you the most when they joined MLS from any era?
Denilson from Brazil, when he came to MLS, I think a lot of people were like, hang on a minute, this guy's going to turn into something great. And I'm telling you right now, the only thing that went up was his weight.
Oh my gosh. Okay, question 8. Who is Major League Soccer's greatest ever player?
Landon Donovan.
Summer or winter?
Winter.
You are living in Boston. Favorite ever shirt swap?
Roque Santa Cruz.
Okay, favorite movie?
Star Wars.
Ugh. One game you wish you were on commentary for, but were not.
U.S. Trinidad failure to qualify for the World Cup.
Oh, it would still be going now if you were on it. Your football idol growing up?
My father or Alan Shearer. They're a tie. 1A, 1B.
Love it. If you could have one superpower, what is it?
Invisible.
Who will win the MLS Cup this season?
FC Cincinnati.
Wow, okay. Best piece of advice received?
Happiness is not measured what's in your wallet. It's measured by how many times you smile a day.
Aw. If you could change one rule in soccer, what would it be?
I'd say somehow address the diving and manipulation of that.
Okay, bigger punishments maybe. Okay, like really strong punishments. Okay, one celebrity you would love to meet?
Michael Jordan.
Will the US men's national team get out of the group at 2026 World Cup?
Yes.
And your favorite Taylor Swift song?
Oh, are you ready for it? It's like on repeat for me.
That was Taylor Swift Round. Thanks for joining us, Taylor. You are the best. And you're in Florida. Where are you this weekend, real quick?
This weekend, we're in LA. LAFC with Steve Cherundolo announcing he's leaving at the end of the year. They take on St. Louis City Sunday night.
Taylor Twellman, you're a legend. As always, thank you so much for joining us on It's Called Soccer.
Thank you, guys. That wasn't very swift.
This episode of It's Called Soccer is brought to you by Peloton. You know that moment when something clicks and you realize, okay, it is time to take your fitness seriously. For me, it was definitely turning 40 and I'd been doing cardio forever. And suddenly I realized I needed to do some strength training. So that was my moment. So whether you're squeezing in a 20-minute strength class over your lunch break or getting a proper run in at the weekend, Peloton has what you need to achieve your fitness goals no matter why you got started. They've got classes and programs for everything. Running, strength, recovery, you name it. And you can do it all at home, in the gym, or even out on the road with the Peloton app. And it's not just about getting stronger, it's about feeling better, building that fitness routine and proving to yourself that you can do it. Plus, if despite all your preseason hopes, this season's not going to end in glory for your team, Peloton's meditation classes are a real game changer for your mood. Whatever it is that sets you on your fitness journey, join our community of thousands of members whose lives have been changed. Find your push, find your power with Peloton at onepeloton.com. So now we are joined by one of the most electric talents in all of American soccer right now. For his incredible performances for Real Salt Lake in 2024, he was selected in the MLS All-Star Game, as well as being named MLS Young Player of the Year. He is also a full international for the US men's national team. Welcome to It's Called Soccer, Diego Luna. Diego, thank you so much for joining It's Called Soccer. I just want to start by saying I'm not trolling you. We have a San Diego shirt up behind me. I know you guys are playing San Diego this weekend. Yeah. It's just because at the beginning of the season, I picked a new MLS team for the season, and that was my team. So I just wanted to get that out of the way at the beginning. So let's just go back a little bit and talk about the 8 goals, the 12 assists last year that helped Real Salt Lake finish 3rd in that Western Conference. And despite the playoff defeat to Minnesota, you had such a good season. Do you look back on the last campaign with real personal pride as your sort of best season yet?
Not really. I feel like, I'm very young still. And I think, last season was just, for me, scratching the surface of what I can do. And I think I'm really just got to find, my rhythm. I feel like, and I think from there, we'll see double-digit numbers, goals and assists this year. And that's the goal this year, to just always be better than I was last year. So, yeah.
Well, last year you did hit a pretty high bar. When I was doing some research for the interview, I did watch the video when they announced to you about winning the MLS Young Player of the Season. And for anyone who didn't see it, it was such a lovely moment. I'm just going to play a few seconds of it right now, just to remind everybody. Diego, just watch this.
Which RSL player made the MLS 22 under 22 list both this year and last year?
Diego Luna.
Who is this year's MLS Young Player of the Year?
Yeah. Oh, that's actually sick, dude. That's actually gonna make me cry. That's awesome, bro. Damn.
Yeah, we're really hyping
That high five, right? I need to high five someone.
I love that, Diego. And you said afterwards that you'd spoken to your brother that day, your agent as well, about that trophy. And I think for people who don't play the game and who follow it so closely like me and like everybody watching, we wonder whether or not those awards do play on the minds of players. But you said like you'd been thinking about it.
Yeah, I think, we have short-term goals and then we have long-term goals, and, to be able to perform and work hard during the season and get rewarded for things like that. It's kind of why we do it, right? You enjoy the little moments, and then at the end you get this, you get recognized for what you're doing. So I think that's the coolest part.
And you talked there about getting to double digits, goals, assists this season. Are you a target kind of person? Do you set yourself those goals?
Yeah. Those are like mid-range goals that I have, like medium goals. I have short-term goals where, that's for each game on the daily. And then we have the mid-term goals. And then, of course, there's long-term goals. But yeah, double-digit goals and assists are what I have for this year.
Well, maybe talk about some of those long-term goals in a sec, but I just want to talk a little bit about your journey, Diego. You actually grew up not very far away from where I live. I'm sort of up near Sacramento. You, I know, grew up in Sunnyvale, not far from San Jose.
Yeah.
And your pathway, so interesting. Went to the Earthquakes, and then after that, you went to the Barcelona Residency in Arizona. Now, I'm not sure many people know much about that. Can you just explain a little bit about what life at the Barcelona Residency in Arizona is like for a young player like yourself, a teenager?
Yeah, I think to sum it up, it's basically a school and an area where kids go to that are really determined to really make soccer something big in their life. I feel like they go there with, you're going to sacrifice moving away from family, from friends, from your home. So I think the sacrifices there are really, the dreams are higher than the sacrifices and the risks you have to take to be there. And, the kids that go there are really determined to make soccer a big thing for them and, hopefully make it a career.
How old were you when you went there?
I was 14, about to turn 15 when I moved there. Yeah.
Wow. And being away from family at that age, how do you think that has impacted the way you are now?
Yeah, I think the first 2 years were especially really hard. Moving away from, family, friends, and then, not really having a normal high school like everyone else, right? Being a part of it and taking those sacrifices to have a dream come true.
And then you made that step into professional football and you went to El Paso Locomotive in USL in 2021. You were 17 years of age, again, out there on your own, now a professional. What was that experience like, just breaking into the professional game?
Yeah, I think that was a whole nother, journey on itself, moving away to another place where you didn't know anybody. And now this time it's the real deal, right? You're getting paid to do this, to perform. And, being a 17-year-old stepping into a locker room full of grown men, it was hard. But it took a lot of, confidence at the right time to understand that I'm meant to be there and to perform. And of course the trust in the coach, and at that time it was Mark Lowry, who really gave me the opportunity to perform and really knew how to coach me as a young kid.
It's really interesting the path you took, Diego, because in this country, and I'm still getting used to it even though I've been here for 11, 12 years. In this country, it's all about college. So when you have a kid that's really good at sport, you think they're going to go to college and maybe they'll get in the draft. You took a different route, or different route, as you guys say. Do you think it's a better pathway?
I think each player has their own pathway. I can't really say that it's better than, one way or the other. But I think for me, it was the pathway that I took that, I felt was right for me. I think I made sacrifices and the decisions. And I think when I needed to be challenged is when I took that next step. I didn't like to be comfortable and not grow and not learn about the game or learn about myself or be challenged. And I think each time I made that leap and that jump. So for me, it was, it's cool to say it's not the, original, the pathway that people have in mind. And I'm proud to say that, I've made it this way and yeah.
Well, it got you there a lot quicker, that is for certain. And then you went into Major League Soccer in the summer of 2022, $250,000, which was a record at the time, to buy out of USL and into Major League Soccer. So you turn up at Real Salt Lake. There you are in the middle of Utah. And now you're barely in your 20s. I mean, you're probably, in 2022, what were you, 18?
I think I was 18, 19.
How hard was the step from USL to MLS?
Yeah, I think the step there, the same thing with the community thing. You change environments and you go there alone, and now it's a whole new. As soon as you're getting comfortable in El Paso, you now move and now you start over again. So it's difficult, on in that aspect. But and then in the soccer aspect, you're this young kid that just got bought for this big deal, and you're going from an underleague to the top league, right? So you see how people will look at you or what they expect, when they say a big, paid a lot of money for you, blah, 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 all this type of things as a young kid. So the pressure's there. But for me, I think it was the same mentality I've had as a kid growing into, this and being confident enough to know that I belong here. And of course, making sure that I work and do what's necessary to be able to have that opportunity and get the playing time and earn it.
I mean, it's amazing, Diego. You're so young still now, but to listen to your journey, was there somebody along that journey with you that you could lean on, get advice from, somebody that was always your rock?
Oh, I'd say, a lot of the time it was kind of myself. I was, a big loner, you can say. Like I kind of, did it on my own. But I'd say my oldest brother was there at times to help me around and be there when I needed it. But, I kind of was a kid that kind of kept things to themselves and kind of just pushed through things and stuff. But, I think now I've started to open up more and let people know and have, my circle around me be bigger. So I think, but during that time, I think it was just kind of head down and go, go, go.
That's incredible. And when you arrived in Salt Lake, this is so interesting to me. This is when I read, and you're drinking a latte right now. So that takes us nicely on. Is it Dutch Bros that you worked for?
Yeah, Dutch Bros.
Okay, tell us, number one, I've never had a Dutch Bros. Should I have a Dutch Bros?
You should try it, yeah.
Okay, I hear there's a lot of sugar going on in Dutch Bros, Diego.
You can make some.
I don't know. I see those videos on Instagram. They're putting all that sugar in, but I'm a sugar fiend, so maybe I will. Okay, just for anyone who doesn't know this, I know some people will, but why? Why, as a professional footballer at Real Salt Lake, you think, you know what, I'm going to go work at the coffee shop?
Yeah, so this was something when I started to open up to my brother and stuff, we kind of talked about things to do on my free time. I had a lot of free time after training. I would just kind of go back to my apartment and just kind of sit there from after, 11 a.m. I was there back home, 12 p.m. I was there and just doing nothing. So we kind of put out ideas and thinking, what can I do? And I was very hard with, keeping eye contact or having conversations with people. It was the worst. I'd like get nervous. I would I didn't know where to look. You know, it was just awkward. So we talked about things and kind of figured out, you know, maybe get a job, do something else, kind of put yourself into, if you weren't a soccer player, like live a normal life, actually start doing things that you can, you know, you can experience and live while you're not being able to do it as your career goes on. So we came down to getting a job at Dutch Bros, where the energy is always there. You have to have good energy. You have to have good communication skills, always keep a convo going, make eye contact. And, you know, they were helpful enough to kind of basically say, you can work whenever you want. Like, you can do this. And the managers there at the time were amazing people. And I met a lot of new friends. And that kind of gave me, you know, an introduction into Utah, because not many people knew who I was. And I got to meet people and kind of understand what it's like to do, you know, something like that. So it was an awesome experience.
And do you think it helped you socially?
Yeah, big time. I think in the beginning, even at the job, the first 2-3 months were difficult, where I was starting to sweat when people were talking, just getting nervous and, you know, kind of didn't know what to say. But then as time went on, it was kind of like easy, and, you know, getting comfortable with different people, starting conversations. It was awesome.
I mean, I feel like it's one of those situations like at Starbucks where someone will give you an order that's like 2 pumps of vanilla, 1 coconut, minus the soy, plus the foam. Like, that just sounds stressful in itself.
Yeah, no, it was, there was times where it was difficult. There was always people there to help me. But, you know, I learned like you do everything, you learn as you do it more.
Yeah.
But it was a cool experience. Now I know how to work at a coffee shop and make coffee. So that's cool.
I love that. I love that. And a couple of years on, here you are, a player who is doing so well domestically, doing so well internationally. And there are clubs around the world who are turning heads and talking about you, and that you've been linked. And I don't expect you to talk about any clubs, but Leeds United, I know, is one that's been looking at you. Overall, you sound very grounded just from the way that you've lived your life so far. When you do get that attention, and you do hear, because I'm sure you don't look for it, but I'm sure people will tell you that there are clubs who are talking about you.
Yeah.
Do you find that quite easy to deal with?
Yeah, for me, it's all just like talks and whatever. And, you know, I always tell my agents and people around me that, you know, I don't want to hear anything about what's going on unless it's like I have to make a decision, unless it's something that, you know, is right there at that moment that, okay, we have to look in this deeply. So I kind of try to tell them to keep that stuff away from me, because it's all just talk. And you know, there's people that talk good, talk bad, and it's everywhere. So I kind of like to stay away from that. And yeah, I think for me, it's just naturally just chilling, just playing soccer, and then, you know, working hard, providing for my family, and then whatever comes from that and whatever comes from, you know, performing, then we'll talk about it.
Well, as I say, your pathway's been so brilliant to look at, and the US men's national team and the international situation as well. I think U14s you started at for USA, and then 17s to 20s to 23s, and then making your debut for the full team, the US men's national team, January of 2024 was that call up. On your second start, we've got to talk about the broken nose. First of all, your nose looks amazing, looks like it's fully healed, everything looks fine. But that story, if people hadn't known much about you before, the story against Costa Rica in January, when you broke the nose and Mauricio Pochettino was like, come on, let me help you off. And you were like, no, I want to stay on. Then you go on and get an assist. He helps you change your shirt. The whole thing is just magic. People fell in love with Diego Luna at that stage. Has life been different since that game a little bit?
Yeah, I think it definitely grew my popularity. I think people that didn't know who I was now kind of tuned in and kind of realized that, oh, he's not just somebody who broke his nose. He's a good player, and they've become fans. But I think, the biggest thing is that you show people that you care, and you're there to work hard, to perform, and you don't fight for your country. Like, who's not gonna want that? And that, for me, it's blessed to be able to show that was just my natural instincts. You know, it wasn't playing a part. It wasn't anything. It's just me being me. So to have that, influence on people and have people think good stuff about me is amazing to feel, because that's just how I am. So I think, it was a pretty cool experience or thing that happened.
You talk about your passion for playing for your country, and that's really interesting. The last couple of games under Mauricio Pochettino, there's been a lot of criticism for a lot of the players and for Pochettino himself as well. And it's been centered around this pride and this passion. You clearly have it in bucket loads. How important has that always been for you to play for the USA, and how much you love this country?
Yeah, I think as a kid, it's been the dream, right? I remember being 5, 6 years old, and my family would have watch parties, USA versus Mexico, and my family would all be in Mexico jerseys, and Mexico would score, and I would scream, I would cry. I was like in my USA gear, and everybody's like cheering around me. They have videos; it's hilarious, and I think just from as a kid, just growing up here in the U.S. and being able to get the opportunity that the U.S. has given me, and with MLS and everything, just being able to live here my whole life, why not, of course, give back to the country that's given me everything and being able to put me in this situation. So, yeah.
So how do your family feel now that you're up on the big stage? Are they still screaming for Mexico?
Yeah, I think it's both. I think, my family loves to support me, and they're always there with whatever jersey I'm wearing. Whether it's just for fun, whether it's a penny on a practice day, they want to watch that team win. But of course they have their Mexican pride, and of course I do as well. But for now it's playing with the U.S. and performing, and hopefully my family supports me forever. But yeah.
I'm sure they will. And of course, Diego, we are on the big countdown, the big 400 and goodness only knows how many days until the World Cup right here in the United States and Mexico and Canada, of course, as well. That for you must feel like Christmas coming early. I mean, this must be the peak. This is it, isn't it? A year to go? This is it. This is what you've dreamt of. Yeah.
I think for me right now, it's, just besides the me playing and the soccer part, it's just amazing, right? To have the World Cup here in USA and Mexico, it's crazy. So besides all that, but then now putting in the aspect that, I am having the opportunity right now to perform and be in that circle of players that could be chosen for this. So I think that's very exciting. And I think that just gives me another thing and motivation to work for and work harder now than ever to be able to be on that roster.
Well, I know when I speak to and listen to so many people who know lots more about football than even me, they all say that you are the future of this team. So we wish you the best of luck with that. Just before we go, one final thing. Some footage that came out on social media not too long ago. The new Star Wars Andor TV show. I'm not a huge Star Wars fan, I'm going to be honest, but I think it's the new TV show on Disney. And you went to the premiere and the whole opening event, and you got to meet the other Diego Luna.
Yeah.
Finalmente se me hizo conocer a su Diego. Qué gusto. Les mando un abrazo. Thank you very much. We're going to do the house move. That was great. It was awesome.
That was so great. How was that experience, Diego?
Yeah, it was crazy. I think the whole experience was awesome. Red carpet, like I couldn't even believe it. Like that's just crazy to think that I would be on a red carpet meeting Diego Luna for such a big, show, Andor premiere too. I think it's crazy, but it was an awesome experience. He was awesome to meet and very humble, very, genuine guy. And I think that was awesome. And hopefully we have more connections after this with him and stuff.
I think I can see some collaborations in your future. Should I be watching this Star Wars Andor thing?
We should, yeah. It's pretty...
Okay, I'll go and get a Dutch Bros and I'll watch that, shall I?
There you go, yeah.
Okay, all right. I have a Diego Luna afternoon. Okay, listen, we're so appreciative of your time. Thank you so much. Good luck for the rest of the season. And if we don't speak before the World Cup, we will be rooting for you. Thank you so much, Diego.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, so our final guest on this MLS special, our attention is switching from the pitch to the sidelines as we welcome one of US soccer's most dynamic coaches. As a player, he made over 180 appearances in the league, winning the MLS Cup with both the Columbus Crew and LA Galaxy. After previously working as an assistant coach with the Galaxy, Philadelphia, and the US men's national team, he took over the reins as head coach with FC Cincinnati in 2021 and guided that struggling franchise as it was then to the Supporter Shield in 2023, for which he was awarded MLS Coach of the Year. A warm It's Called Soccer welcome to Pat Noonan. So, Pat, let's get going with the win at the weekend, beating Chicago by 3-2 away from home. That's got to be one of the best results so far, hasn't it, of the season?
After the first half, I would have probably said no. After the second half, yes. I thought Chicago did a really good job of putting us under pressure, and I don't think we coped with it particularly well. But in the second half, I think there were some subtle adjustments. We played, with more composure, and we were able to control the tempo in certain stretches that, it's not easy on the road, but it showed at least progress within the game. And so I say it all the time, it's not easy to win on the road in this league, and Greg's doing a really good job with Chicago, and they're trending in the right direction. So I was pleased with us being able to go and get that win.
You're trending absolutely in the right direction as well. We're going to get onto that a little bit more in a second. We spoke to Taylor Twellman, who told us that you guys were at grade school together. We're not going to go all the way back to grade school, Pat, don't worry. I'm just going to take you a little bit back, though, in your career. For our listeners here on It's Called Soccer, I think they'll be really interested. Of course, you were a player, and as a player, some managers say that when they played, they knew. Even in their early 20s, they knew that coaching was the way they wanted to go. Were you one of them, Pat?
I was not. I was so focused on trying to figure out playing and being a champion and being a good teammate and being a part of good environments. And so it wasn't until the very end of my career where I knew I wanted to stay in the game. On what capacity? It wasn't until the very end where I started to get some work in LA with the academy, and with the idea that maybe I'd be going back to New England to work with Jay Heaps at the time. But no, I was not one of those managers. So
at what point when you started coaching did you think, okay, no, definitely this is for me?
Pretty early. That first year in LA, I was fortunate enough to work under Bruce Arena, and it was unexpected, but it was an opportunity that I knew I couldn't pass up, to be able to learn from, one of the best to do it in our country. And, I was kind of a fly on the wall. I thought, as a player, when you go into this coaching world, you think you have so many answers and so many things figured out. And when I look back, I knew nothing. I had so much to learn, but it was a good starting point. And then, as I, went through this coaching journey and, post LA, had a year with the national team, which was a totally different, I would say, opportunity. And you almost felt like a scout at times. It was less the on-field. And so that was unique. And then going to Philly, it was just, these were the right steps for me to understand that this is how I see the game. And if I have the opportunity to be a head coach, this is what I want it to look like.
It's really interesting as a head coach because it's sort of two parts, isn't it? It's the football side and then it's the man management side. The football side, I'm sure, comes naturally. You were a player and then you're passionate about learning philosophies and coaching and all of that. But the man management side, did you learn off Bruce Arena? What did you learn? How did you create that side of the job for you?
I did. I learned from, observing how a successful manager spoke in front of the team in good moments, but most importantly in the tough moments, in the tough stretches. How did he manage players individually? And then from there it was working with Jim Curtin, who was also excellent at the man management component of it. And so I had my own ideas, but there's no question I learned from two very successful managers on how the day-to-day needs to look, on how communication needs to look, on how you get buy-in from your group in the toughest of moments. And so, the man management is, we talk a lot about in the coaching courses. You get all the philosophies and the on-field and all these ideas, the principles, but they need chapters about how the man management component of it is as important as the rest.
And Pat, everybody in football these days has a philosophy. Everybody has a way they want to play. And I think everyone blames Pep Guardiola for this, basically. It's kind of Pep's way or no way. What would you say is your philosophy? Is it set or does it change depending on who you have in your team?
I think I've been more, I've adapted more than I expected. Early on, I think based on the environment I was coming from in Philly and a lot more transition based and wanting to be a high tempo team, where I've evolved is trying to control the tempo with the ball at times. And I still like to be attack minded. I know these are always when coaches talk about, we want to be high pressing, we want to be dominant with the ball. I try to look at, what's our track record? What does the numbers look like from 22 when it started to now, as far as how do we rank in the attack? And I think we've been good about, creating chances, scoring goals, being towards the top of the league in those aspects. But defensively, I think we've tried to stick true to being a team that likes to step up and make teams uncomfortable with our pressure. And how does that turn into the right transition moments at the right times to speed play up? But when you talk about the likes of the Pep Guardiolas and the De Zerbis, that's stressful. I mean, to be able to have that much confidence in your players and in your playing style to invite pressure in the way they do, I can tell you I'm not there, but there are components of our group where I want us to be more composed and more comfortable under pressure so that we can, have a balance of how we break teams down.
I mean, Pat, you have enough going on. The job, I know, is 24/7. Do you, though, find yourself studying the Peps and the De Zerbis and all the different top managers? And do you look at certain aspects from just a completely different mindset than maybe you would have done 10 years ago? Absolutely.
I feel like it's hard now in this role to watch games sometimes and not try to analyze. And I try to find a balance, because there's times where I want to watch a Champions League game. I want to watch a Premier League game and not think about the formations and the tactics of it. I just want to enjoy a good game. But it's hard sometimes to switch that part of your brain off that says, all right, how are they building? All right, what's the rotations? How do they make decisions with the ball in certain areas of the field? How do they attack with numbers with their wing backs, especially when you're comparing how our group plays and you try to find similarities with coaches that have a similar structure. And so I try to find the balance, but it is hard. And I'll tell you, it would be silly not to watch the top managers and the top teams and players and look for ideas.
One of the other things I always wonder about, Pat, especially in this country, so back in England, of course, they hire and fire managers much, much quicker than they do here, which is not a good thing in lots of ways. But it's a smaller country. And so from a personal point of view, from a family point of view, if you move jobs, you're only moving a couple of hours away, right? So often you can just leave your family behind. But in this country, I mean, you've already done LA to Philadelphia to Cincinnati. And it just kind of gives me the heebie-jeebies a little bit as somebody who has a kid. And if you're married to a head coach and you have children in this country, that is signing up for possibly a lot of uprooting. Is that something that you're very aware of, Pat?
Absolutely, but it kind of feels like the norm, so I don't have that European experience to be able to compare it. So when I'm moving from LA to Philly, it's like, I know America, it's big, and this is going to be a pretty drastic move. And then from Philly to Cincy, what does that look like for your family? It can be stressful, but I'll tell you what, I'm fortunate. My wife is very supportive. My kids are very supportive. I think when we were moving around as a player every couple of years, and then when we had our children early on, they're young. They don't really know. They don't have, their best friends yet. So they're at an age now where that's a talking point. But she's been so supportive and made these transitions for our family a lot easier. And she's been on board from the beginning. We love the adventure, that this sport and this journey has brought us on. So you hope to have stability and stay a long period of time with success at the clubs you're working with. So that's the goal. And we're, in a good place here in Cincy. We're striving for more. But I would like, to have that same level of travel where you have in Europe, where it's like, we're just picking up and we're going a couple hours. And in England, like you spoke about, you can go from club to club and you're not traveling very far. You're not uprooting your family. So it is unique, but it's kind of all I know.
And Pat, are you the kind of manager that takes it home? Are you the kind of manager that can walk in the front door and switch off, or no?
Yeah, I'm going to give you my answer, and then I'm going to go home and I'm going to say to my wife, this was asked to me today, and I know this has been brought up. I try my best because I like to, as much as possible, leave the work at home. Now, ask my kids as well. There's moments where I'm home, and whether it was a bad training session, we're coming off a bad result, a bad meeting, there's a tough player conversation. I'll be present, physically, but mentally my mind will be thinking about those things. So I try to get all my work done so that when I go home, I can be a husband and I can be a father. And I think we're having more good days than not, but it's not perfect. I can tell you that, because it's part of the job, and it's hard to just entirely switch off when I go home. So when I need to be reminded that, hey, you're somewhere else, my wife and kids will let me know. They keep me grounded.
Good for her. I love it. Okay, let's talk a bit about Cincinnati. When you joined December 2021, the club had finished bottom every season that they'd been in Major League Soccer. When you took that job then, was that a daunting prospect that you were taking over something that wasn't working? Or was that actually like, you know what, the only way is up from here?
Well, it was less daunting when you're going through the interview phase and you see the stadium and you see the fan base and you see the training facility. So there were aspects of, taking this opportunity that, that comforted me. But of course, it's, my first head coaching role, and, what's that going to look like? There's a lot of uncertainty around that. But you also look at the roster, and there was a lot of talent. And so I think while maybe a lot of people would have been scared of this opportunity, for me, I wasn't going to be able to pick what my first job looked like. And this was a struggling team, but the ownership support was there, the resources were there. We had to get the on-field product right. And if we were able to do that, I think everything would come together in time. And I think we're in a much better place now. But I could tell you it didn't start particularly well, because we lost the opener 5-0 in Austin. And so you're starting to question some things really quickly. But we just had a really strong group at that time. We went and got some really important veteran pieces like the Ray Gattises and the Alec Khans and the Don Bajis at this time to go and help be an extension of my voice. Harris Medunian, and these are a lot of names that people might forget about, but they were really important in those early days when we were struggling and trying to figure out who we were going to be and what we were about.
And fast forward to now, you've strengthened even more. And two of the names, of course, are Evander and Kevin Denkey. And I know that those are the two that often take up a lot of the headlines, a lot of the attention. But that's not just what this team is about, is it, Pat? Not just those two.
No, and I try to say that all the time. Understand the strengths of your teammates. Yes, we want play to go through Evander. Why? Because he sees the game at a level that not everybody does. And with Kevin, how do we connect Evander to our front line? How do we get Kevin in positions to finish plays off? Because that's where they excel. But understand, those are two pieces. And not just talking about the starting group. You're talking about the reserves. You're talking about the big picture of how you get a group moving in the same direction. And I will say those two additions have been a joy to work with. They have the right mentality. We've challenged Evander, on the defensive side of the ball, Kevin on the defensive side of the ball, because we see what they can do with the ball. But there's a lot more to the game, and it's getting that level of buy-in. And when their teammates see that these guys are putting in the work, that goes a long way. So they're going to get the headlines, but there's a lot of pieces to this group. Lucas Engel, we got a young Roberto Flores. We've just brought in an experienced Brad Smith, and I'm going to name guys that might not always get the headlines, but they're really important to how our group looks from day to day.
And just one last question on this season, Pat. Taylor Twellman thinks, your old schoolmate thinks you're going to win it. You're going to win the whole thing. You're going to win MLS Cup. That was his pick. Are you, when you look at this season, are you guys where you wanted to be, or are you surprising yourself, or are you not yet where you want to be in terms of form and the way you're playing and results?
Results ahead of where I think we, maybe not where we wanted to be, but based on performances where I think we maybe should be. I think there's a lot more in this group. I've been maybe too critical at times because I don't want the standards to drop. I want these guys to continue to be motivated and not settle with getting a good result. Because if you just take a step back and we say, okay, let's put the score aside. How did we perform? How do we perform individually? More important, collectively. And how are we starting to build relationships and progress our group? We have a long way to go.
Okay, final question. You talked there about not wanting standards to drop. So what are Pat Noonan's non-negotiables as a head coach with your group of players? What are your non-negotiables, things that they absolutely cannot get away with?
Timeliness. I'm big on being on time when you should be in a meeting, when you should be in your rehab, your prehab, all of it. So be on time, be honest, be respectful. Those are 3 things for me that I talk about from day one.
I love it. Pat, we wish you luck this weekend, Sporting Kansas City, and for the rest of the season. And thank you so much for joining us on It's Called Soccer. We'll speak soon.
It was a pleasure. Thank you, Rebecca.
That's about all we've got time for from this episode of It's Called Soccer. Next week, Gary Neville will be back, and we will be joined by the New York Red Bulls captain and Sweden international Emil Forsberg, and we'll bring you right up to date with all things Premier League. So don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your shows, Apple, Spotify, and YouTube, and please do leave us a comment. We always love to hear from you. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next week. Bye for now.